Good morning. My name is Bryson Davis. I am the member of the VTC committee and co-host of this workshop. Unisonoi is honored to be hosting the 10th annual Vietnam Tech Conference in collaboration with Saigon South International School. And it is my honor to introduce you to Chris Smith, who will talk to you about transforming difficult data into useful information in the upcoming workshop. Chris is a data and innovation specialist and elementary tech coach at Singapore American School with over 20 years of teaching experience. He is a Google innovator, an Apple distinguished educator, and an Apple professional learning specialist. Chris has a background in data visualization and is a member of the data team at Singapore American School. In his spare time, he enjoys curling up next to a good spreadsheet. Welcome, Chris Smith.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Wow, this is great. So as introduced, yes, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about my background and where I'm at. I've been overseas for a long time, lived in Japan for a long time before coming to Singapore, and I'm now in my 8th year here at Singapore American School. So why are we talking about this? Well, the problem that we have when it comes to data and it comes to education, we're using data all the time. We're pulling data in from different places, but the problem that we have is that we've got this data that usually comes into a spreadsheet or something that looks like this, and it's information that people need, but it's not really in a layout that people can make good use of. So this is a problem that we have. So how do we fix this? Well, one solution is to take all that information and put it into a format or a layout that is easily accessible by anyone that needs to see it. So this information, for example, is from a PE team at a school, and it pulls in their scheduling information and all of the facilities that they're using, how many teachers are teaching which classes, what their student interactions are, those types of things. And so it's updated in real time, it's searchable, and it's accessible by anyone that needs it. So a couple of other examples, you might be having academic data across multiple platforms, whether it be internal, external assessments about students. You can, instead of having that all on a spreadsheet or multiple spreadsheets, multiple third-party software places, you can bring that all together into one platform and design it and organize it into a system that works for your needs. Another example is bringing in social and emotional learning data. So maybe you're collecting information on social and emotional standards such as the CASEL standards, or you want to track interventions. What types of interventions are being used? What do we use most frequently? What issues are students having, and how are they progressing? So instead of having that in a spreadsheet or a Google Doc, if you bring it into a dashboard, then counselors, teachers, administrators, they can hop on here and look for and find whatever information they need to see. Another example is at the beginning of the year, we create class profile cards, where instead of having pieces of paper of which students are going to be in a teacher's class, we can provide this information in a dashboard where they can instantly see what their class roster is going to be like. Do they have any things that they need to be concerned with as far as behavior issues, or do they have any ELA students that are getting support? Those types of things, we can pull all that into a dashboard. Another example of a class overview, maybe you want to look at how your class is doing in a bunch of different areas academically. Again, internal, external assessments, we can bring that all together pretty easily. So if any of those things seem to be kind of interesting to you, or you want to learn a little bit more, I have designed a course on this to get you started with Data Studio. I'll come back to this in a minute. So the big idea behind what we're doing here is I want to do this hands-on. I want to give you the opportunity to give it a go, and to let you know that hopping into Data Studio and using it isn't that hard if you're given a bit of direction with it. So there are a couple of links. There's a spreadsheet link there, and we are going to be using the information from the Olympics to create a simple dashboard. Although I know it's not academic, but it's something that's quick and easy, and you can get a feel for how Data Studio works. So if you can go to that short link there, type that in, grab the spreadsheet and open it up. It'll force you to make a copy. So go ahead and make a copy of that. And then you'll also need to be in Data Studio as well. But go ahead and get the spreadsheet first, and then go into Data Studio. When you open the spreadsheet, it should look like this. It should look like absolutely nothing, which is great. But there are two tabs at the bottom. We have a data tab and we have a resources tab. And the data tab is where we're going to be putting in some information that's going to get connected to Data Studio. The resources tab, in order to save time, I have placed all of the things that you need in the resources tab. So I just want to go over the resources tab briefly, and then we'll hop into it. So the top part, one cool thing that you can do is when you're pulling in data, of course, you can have a spreadsheet with your data in it, connect that to Data Studio. Right now, we don't have data, so we're going to quickly grab some data from the internet. And we're going to be getting that data that's live. And so if we were doing this a week ago when the Olympics were still going, you would see your dashboard being updated often. But we'll go ahead and grab some CBS Sports, their website with their medal count, which is this URL down here. And we'll get that in a minute. We're also going to be using these emojis to display gold, silver, and bronze. So I just put those in there so that you can quickly copy and paste those when we need those. And then we have our URL, which is the image, the logo of the Olympics logo. So those are the three things that we're going to be using. We're going to dump all those together into Data Studio and have a little bit of fun. Okay. So let me go back to the link. I see someone has just joined us. So this link here for the spreadsheet, if you can go ahead and put that into your browser, if you're able to do that, I'll leave that up for just a moment. And then once you have that and you've made a copy of that, you should have that in your browser. There are two tabs, data and resources. And then you should also have Data Studio opened if you're able to play along with us. So inside of here, the way Data Studio looks, you might have to accept some permissions if it's your first time to use this. After you click OK, 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 and all those things, we're going to create a blank report. So this big plus sign here, we're just going to go ahead and start with that. So go ahead and create a blank report. And when you do that, it's going to pop up this menu that says, OK, what data do you want to import? Data Studio, you can't really do anything until you have data connected. And so we're going to be connecting sheets. Well, we're not going to do that just yet. We need to go back and set up our spreadsheet. Okay, so you can leave this like this. I'll go back into my spreadsheet here. And what I need to do is bring in my data. So if I go to the Resources tab, down here in row 8, there's this URL. It says import HTML, and it has a URL link. And so what you can do in Sheets is you can import information from the internet. And we use this formula called import HTML. So go ahead, and if you just highlight cell B8, and you can copy that. So I'm just doing Command C. I'm on a Mac. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to come into my data tab, and in cell A1, I'm going to type the equal sign, and then I'm going to paste in that formula. So type the equal sign and paste in that import HTML formula. And just to give you a bit of an idea, what this means is the first part of this formula is the URL itself. And then the second part where it says table, inside of the website, you have to do a little bit of exploring, but a lot of information is either in a table or a list. And so you have to do a bit of detective work and just type in the word table and then comma and then the number 1. That's saying what the index is. So what table on the website is it? Is it the first table, the second table, the third table? So you just kind of have to do a little bit of playing around. I've already done this for you. And so it's table 1. And we can see that our data from CBS Sports just automatically dumps in right there. So we've got countries listed, we've got how many gold, silver, bronze, and then their total medal count. And that's all you need to do in the spreadsheet. We've got our data. Now we're going to go back to Data Studio and connect this. So I'll come back to Data Studio. And when you're connecting data, you have lots of options. So as teachers, we'll be using spreadsheets, most likely, Google Sheets. But if you do have CSV files, like perhaps you are downloading data from IXL, or you're downloading data from PowerSchool or from iReady or some other third-party platform, you want to be able to use that data, map testing scores, you might upload those as a CSV file. And so if you have the CSV file, you can connect that CSV file directly as well. I'm going to go ahead and choose Google Sheets. And I'm going to choose this Olympics one. It should be populated on yours too, the top one there. So I'll just select that. And when you select your data source, it's going to display all of your different tabs. Our data is in the data tab. So I'll select data. And down here at the bottom, I'm just going to click on add. Give it a moment to process. And yours should be doing the same. And it will just put in a table for us, a random table. It always starts like that. So let me just quickly go over the layout of Data Studio. So you have your canvas here where you create your report. Over on the right-hand side is where you do most of the work. This is under the hood. And so you have a data tab, and under this data tab is where you can bring in your, what they call your dimensions or your metrics. And there's also a style tab where you can change the way things look. Over here in the available fields, when that shows up, these are basically all of the columns that are in your data source. So they should populate there. So we have the bronze, country, gold, silver, total, etc. It does put it in alphabetical order, so it doesn't come in exactly how the spreadsheet looks, but you can find your information. Data Studio will also bring in this thing called a record count. It automatically pulls in a record count, which can be useful in certain situations. So let's take a look at what we already have here. We have this table that they brought in for us, and it has our country names in it. That's cool. And it has this record count. Basically, what this is telling us is that there is one Germany, there is one United States, there is one Sweden. Okay, great. Let's make this a little bit more useful. So countries, we want to recognize those as countries. And so we're going to change our data set just a little bit. So over here, we have country, and it says ABC. We want Data Studio to recognize that as an actual location. So I'm going to come up in my data source. I'm going to hover over this pencil here. I'm going to say edit data source. When I click on that, it'll bring up all my fields, and I can actually change the type of data that's coming in. So country, right now it's a text. If I click on that, I can change this to geo, and I'm going to change that to country. And it says, well, do you really want to change this to a country? So I'll say continue, and you'll notice this little globe show up here. So I'll click on done, and now it's adjusted my data to be a country. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, one thing that you can do in Data Studio is you can use maps. You can use Google Maps. So what I'm going to do is take this country tab. I'm just going to drag it onto my canvas here and plop it down, and it will pull up a map for me, just like that. And every country or every location that it recognizes, it will go ahead and plot those for me. So we can see that each country right now on this map is represented by a dot. And so that might be okay, but let's go ahead and adjust this to make it a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to do is up here on the chart, Google Maps, it says, I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And there are 4 different map types. We're going to use this one that says filled map. So if I tap on filled map, then that looks a little bit better. It kind of looks what we call a chloropleth map. And then what I can do, I'm going to close this here so I have a little bit more room. And I'm just going to change this a little bit. I'm going to come into style, and you can do this or you don't have to do this, but you can change the different type of map. If you want a satellite map, for example, you can decide how you want it to be filled in. You can decide if you want borders or not. I usually tend to remove the borders. So I might choose white there, for example, or you can just leave it alone. So that's kind of neat. You can see which countries are participating in the Olympics pretty quickly. Another thing that we'll do, let's go back to this table here and bring in our medal counts. So we have our country. That's great. Let's go ahead and we're going to get rid of the record count. We don't need that. So I'm just going to delete that metric. And what I want to do is bring in the medals. So for that, let's take gold, for example, and let's drop that on our metric. And there it shows me how many golds each country has. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with silver and bronze. So I'm pulling in these metrics. It's showing me the country. It's showing me how many medals each country has. And of course, if I resize my table, I can see more countries. And if you wanted to, you could go ahead and bring in the total. So let's just bring that in. And so we've got our numbers there. Okay, that's fine. Let's make it a little bit better. This doesn't look any different than the spreadsheet. So let's make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm just going to resize this a bit. And what I'm going to do is you can come in and adjust your headers here to, and that doesn't affect your underlying data set. So for example, for gold, if I have the gold here, I'm going to change this to look like that medal, the actual emoji for the gold medal. So if you go back to your spreadsheet and in your resources tab, we have our 3 medals here. So I'm going to hover on gold and I'm just going to copy that. So I'm doing Command C to copy that. And I'll go back to my report. And in gold here, I'm going to hover over the little edit pencil. And where it has the name here, I'm going to just paste in that gold medal. And it'll change it in my header there. Now, that doesn't do anything to your data set. Your data set remains the same. You're just changing the way that it looks. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that process for silver and bronze. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet. I'll grab the silver, copy that, go back to my report, and then down here, my metric for silver, I'll click on the pencil to edit and paste in that silver medal. And then let's do the same thing for bronze. So spreadsheet, copy the bronze, come back over here, and I will paste that in, and we're good to go. So that kind of makes it look a little bit better. Now on my screen, those are really small. So I'm going to come into Style, and I want to adjust those. So you can adjust the font sizes for your header, for example. Maybe I want that to be a little bit larger. So, okay, that looks a little bit better. If you need to wrap text because you have a lot of text in your headers, you can choose to do that. You can also change the table colors as far as alternating rows or what the background of the table is, the borders. You can go in and customize all that. Table labels, this is the actual data in the table. So if I click, I can go ahead and adjust the font sizes there. You can decide whether you want the row numbers or not. If you don't want those, you can untick that. And then there's this thing called pagination. So every table is going to have basically a total down here, how many data sources you have. So if you have thousands of rows of data, then it will give you pages. And if you don't want that there, you just untick that. So we've got our data coming in. Now the size is a little bit off. It's like some columns are wide, some are narrow, and you can fix that. If you right click on your table, you get some options. And one of them here is resize columns. And you have 2 different options with your resize columns. You can say fit to data. So if it's long, like the country names, it'll automatically make those long. If it's short, like the numbers, it'll shorten those. Or you can distribute evenly. It depends on what you want. I'm just going to go ahead and click on fit to data, and it'll kind of adjust those for me. All right. Now let's do something where we change, instead of just numbers, let's make this a little bit more visual. So I'm still inside of Style. And if I come down to my metrics here, I have some options. So the first one right now, it says number. If I click on that, I can change that to something called a heat map, which will give me like color variations depending on the frequency of the number, or I can change it to a bar, which another thing is they're called spark lines. So if I click on this bar one, for example, all those numbers get changed into bars. If I still want to see the number that was there, though, I can also click on show number. And so now I have both of those things. I can go ahead and, if I don't like that color, you can come into here and change your colors. And then I'm just going to go down to column 2. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll change that to a bar. And I'll say show number. And I'll come down to my 3rd metric and do the same thing. Change that to a bar and say show number. And so that's bringing in those pieces of information, but it's making it slightly more visual. Another thing that you can do is with the heat map. So we have our 4th column, which is the total. So let's change that to a heat map. And then you can see the frequency change as far as the darker the color, then that means obviously the more metals that they got total. So these colors, for me, I have a hard time with these colors. I don't really like it. And so what I'm going to do is change the style. And so what you can do is in theme and layout, if you click on that, you'll get some default themes. So you can just click through here and you might find something that you like better. So you could pick one that you like and run with that. That's a very quick and easy way to do it. If you have an image, you can also, like you have a school logo, you can also pull your school logo colors in very quickly with right down here at the bottom where it says extract theme from image. So let's take a look at how you might do that. I'm not guaranteeing that the colors are going to be great, but let's take a look at that. So if I go back to my spreadsheet, the very top link here was the URL for the Olympics logo. So I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to copy this, or you can also come here to copy it. I'll go back to my report. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert that logo real quick. So up here for image, if I click on the drop-down menu, I can either upload an image from my computer I have on my desktop, or I can upload something by URL. So I'm going to click on by URL, paste in that URL for that image, click on insert, and it will just drop that in for me. So I have my image there. So if you have a school logo, that's a very quick and easy way to bring in a school logo. Now to change your theme colors, if you did want to do that, I still have that URL in my clipboard. So if I come down to extract theme from image, it's the same thing. I can just do the URL. And when I do that, it's going to give me 3 different options for color, and I can decide which one I like, right? So I could pick, maybe I like this one, click on apply, and it will adjust my colors for me. I'm not going to go through the coloring too much, but that's something that if you're interested in, you can play with that a bit. One last thing that I'll do is show you how to add in controls. And so thinking about, like, maybe you want to focus in on academic data, you want to focus in on a certain student, a certain class, a grade level, you can add these controls in. So we could add a drop-down list, for example, and it defaults to country, which is great. And so maybe I want to be able to come into here and just look at only the United States. If I do that, all my data will filter and show me only the United States, for example. And I can go ahead and reset that and bring all my data back. Another neat thing that you can do with the controls, there are several of them. I'll just show you one more for the interest of time. This slider one, if I bring this in, and what I can do is change this to maybe the total numbers, and you'll see this slider here, and it says from 1 to 37. And so what I could do, if you're in here, you can take this, and the user can come through and adjust, and they say, I want to see anything that has more than 6 medals, but less than 20 medals. It'll filter your data into that range. So if you think like map test scores, or if you're looking at, you want to look at students that are scoring from the, above a 60%, but up to an 80% within a range, you can go ahead and filter that really quickly by using this slider tool. So those are some of the, I know this was super fast, super quick, but I just wanted to basically show you how, if you have a data set and if you get started in the right way, if you understand just some of the basics of how it works, you can bring in data and you can start playing with it pretty quickly and designing. And there's a ton of things that I did not get to. I didn't talk about very much. This is very, very basic. But if you are interested and you think that it's going to be something that you would like to do more with or learn more about, there is a link there, smithvisualizations.com/VTC2022. If you sign up and you're interested, I'll give people that are coming here a 20% off discount to the course if you're into it. If you need some help with organizing PD from your school and getting somebody at your school to convince them to pay for it, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to them about the benefits of it.